Our gospel reading for today is from Mark chapter 5, 21 through 24. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the lake. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue, named Jairus, came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him. And a large crowd followed and pressed in on him. This is the word of the Lord. I want to speak to you about hope today. And I want to tell you mainly 4 things about hope. The first one is this. Hope involves expecting the unexpected, and it becomes very important in our lives when we need help. Every golfer has hope. Every golfer expects the unexpected. Maybe you can only drive the ball 220, but you just think if you could just make some little adjustment, you can hit it 300. You expect the unexpected. Some hopes are real and some are not. Ben Hogan knew hope. Just by chance, I saw a YouTube video of an interview with him this past week. Ben Hogan is thought to be one of the best ball strikers of all time in the world of golf. He was in California, and a Roman Catholic priest asked his friend Bing Crosby if he could interview Ben Hogan. So Crosby as well arranged this, and so the YouTube is about the interview. And the priest did not want to interview him about his golf swing. He wanted to interview him essentially about his hope. See, Ben Hogan had become a famous golfer and had won many championships through the 1940s. And then, I believe it was in 1949, Hogan was driving down a lonely highway in California, and I think they were on a bridge, and it was very foggy. All of a sudden, there appeared, coming the other way, a huge Greyhound bus, and they ran headlong into it. At the last second, Hogan flung his body over his wife, who was sitting next to him, and it saved both their lives. He was very injured. He was fractured in his legs, fractured in his upper body. He had many, many difficulties. And the doctors really doubted that he would ever walk again, much less play championship golf again. Hogan held out hope. He did walk again, and he would take walks to strengthen his legs. You know, golfers have to walk the whole distance of those 18 holes when they're competing in the PGA. And he began to practice again. Now, he had worked hard to develop his swing. But now, with this broken body, he could not swing the way he used to before the accident. And so he worked hard, and he adjusted his swing to what his body would allow at this point in his life. And then, in 1950, he rejoined the tour and went on to win more tournaments. And he played, I think, well into the 1960s and maybe up to 1970. I probably saw him on TV as a child and didn't even know it. Hogan expected the unexpected. Hogan held out hope when probably nobody else did. It was seemingly a miracle. Well, you know, we hold out hopes too for things in our lives, but sometimes our hope is seemingly beyond our ability to achieve. help then. So I would ask you today, what is a genuine hope that you have in your life? For yourself, for someone else? What is a genuine hope that you hold out for yourself or a loved one or somebody else in your life today? Have you asked God for help? And have you done your part? See, Hogan did his part. He didn't just lay there in a bed. He did not just listen to the radio. He got out there and did his part. So this brings me to the second thing I want to say about hope. When we ask God for help, we are asking God to help us achieve what we hope for. And sometimes what we hope for is for the well-being of a loved one. For example, that's what Jairus hoped for when he went to see Jesus. This man had authority and power and probably wealth. He was a leader of the synagogue, but his daughter lay at home dying, and there was nothing he could do. And yet he held out hope that she might live. And in that hope, he did something. He did his part. He went and found Jesus, who was in the area and who was surrounded by a big crowd. And he found Jesus, and he just begged Jesus to come and lay his hands on his daughter. And that's what we need to do. We need to ask God for help as we work to achieve our hopes. Well, Jesus responded, "Okay, I'll come home with you." And so off they started, and the crowd pressed upon them and went along with them. And all of a sudden, Jesus stopped. Jesus got distracted with something else. There was no time to delay. His daughter was dying, but he stopped. So that leads me to the third thing I want to say. We do ask God. But then sometimes help seems slow in coming. And when help seems slow in coming, you've got to keep doing your part. And you've got to maintain your hope and trust in God, even when the help seems slow in coming. See, what distracted Jesus was a woman who had been ill for 12 long years, some sort of hemorrhaging. She held out hope for healing and held out hope that God could help her through this man Jesus, even though she had spent all her money on all the doctors and there was nothing more they could do. She worked her way through the crowd and she just reached out and touched his clothes, and she found herself being healed instantly. And that's when Jesus stopped. He looked around and he said, "Who touched me?" He felt the power go out from him. The disciples said, "Jesus, this crowd's pressing upon you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" The woman came out from the crowd, revealing herself, and confessed all that she had done. And you know how Jesus responded? He said, "Your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And you know what? Jesus' healing was even greater than just her physical healing, because for 12 long years she had been isolated from community because with her particular illness she was deemed ritually unclean. And people had to stay away from her. So she was breaking the rules when she got into that crowd and when she reached out and touched Jesus. That touching is very symbolic for this very isolated woman. And so Jesus' healing included restoring her to community. That brings me to the next thing I want to say about hope. God's help can be greater than what we hope for. Furthermore, Now, the crowd might have expected Jesus to help this powerful man who was a leader in the temple. But would they have expected Jesus to help this ritually unclean, isolated woman? Maybe not. Jesus was breaking the rules again, as well as her. Jesus does not recognize status. Jesus does not recognize any differences among all the different kinds of people. Jesus is for everyone, and no one is left out. And when we turn to God for help, for what we hope for, God can even be greater in help than we imagine, because we are limited in what we can envision for ourselves. We are limited in our vision of possibilities for ourselves. God's vision for us may be greater than what we hope for. Consider Jairus again. While Jesus was distracted with this woman, people came and told him, "Don't bother Jesus anymore. Your daughter has died." Well, Jesus heard this. He said to Jairus, "Let's go to your house anyway." And he took James and John and Peter with him. There they go to the house. There already are the mourners there weeping and wailing. And Jesus says, "Why are you crying? She's just asleep. She's not dead." And they laugh at him. Why wouldn't they? What a silly thing to say. Well, Jesus takes the mother and the father into the room where she lay, and he tells her to get up. "Wake up, young girl." And she does. Miraculously, she is healed of death. Of course, the parents are utterly amazed. And so I say, dare to hope. Because God's vision about possibilities for life, they're greater than your vision. And remain open, because if you genuinely, in faith, are trusting God in your hope, and you are doing your part to work for the achievement of your hope, then God's change may just be beyond what you originally thought. And your life may change more than you had planned. You know, Jairus lost hope. His daughter was dead. His hope had to do with his daughter returning to health. And so when she died, he lost hope. So, even when you lose hope, don't give up on God, because God's vision is bigger for you than it is for yourself. Than your vision is for yourself. Don't even let the loss of hope make you give up and become cynical or untrusting. Maintain your hope in God. And so, dare to expect the unexpected and do your part. Ask God for help in faith and trust. Maintain your hope when even it seems like God didn't hear or God's delayed for some reason. Maintain your hope and hang in there. And open yourself to new possibilities that God's help may be even greater than what you hoped for. Never give up. Always hope. Now, there's one final thing. After Jesus healed that young woman, he gave strict orders. Do not tell anyone about this. I want to leave you with this. Ponder your hope and ponder that curious thing that Jesus said.